it is my favourite season. We are up to part 6, 2013, 2014, and the reason we're doing that is these three gentlemen along around me, circling me, not in a menacing way, in a very loving one. I've got Martin Fitzgerald, Steve Graves and Neil Atkinson. They all picked this as their favourite season, and we've got to mid-February and we've got to an FA Cup game against Arsenal where we lose 2-1. We play great. They give us 1 penalty. They should give us maybe 7. I'll say 3. Let's be generous and say 3. But yeah, it feels like we get diddled.
We do get diddled. I think there's interesting things about the game. One is that Arsenal set up emphatically like a team who just got whacked 5-1 by Liverpool. And it is the, like, you know, Wenger, this is when now 12 years, 13, no, more than 14, 15 years into Wenger in English football. I mean, Wenger comes into English football, breath of fresh air, Overmars, Petit, Anelka, all this free-flowing football is the theory of Wenger. And I remember thinking on this day, as this game was sort of wearing on, the extent to which it feels now like Wenger's not that guy and not choosing to be that guy because, well, the Reds are. If you want to turn this into an end-to-end football match, we'll whack you. We're better at that than you are. And the frustration, though, is that they don't do that. And I don't think it's any sort of, like, unbelievable masterclass from Wenger, like you say. The game's in the end settled by 1 goal in 3. It's a really scrappy affair. They're hanging on for dear life all the way through the second half. We should get the penalties. And it is a massive shame. It is a shame in the context of this season. There's not actually that many good teams left in the FA Cup either at this point. I think I'm right in saying Arsenal go on to win it this season.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
So it is... whilst this season is so much about the league and the momentum that was garnered from it, there is, I think, within this game, you know, just a bit of a shame that they weren't able to get the result, and they genuinely do deserve it on the day. And afterwards, the referee, who I think was Howard Webb, said, either, I can't remember if it was immediately after the game or later in the season, he made some sort of noise like, well, the second one on Suarez probably is a penalty, but I'd already given him one. And if I give him another one, he's probably conned me on one of them. It was almost like, I didn't say literally, I've not done a direct quote, but he acted like, if you give Suarez 2 penalties, you're going to get slaughtered on the telly. And he knew it was on the telly. And I just, loads of bits of that were just hugely annoying. You're like, if you see it and you think it's a penalty, referee, just give the penalty. And then you go from there. And that day, it's like a really good argument for the video assistant referee in a way. Yeah. Go on.
Mm-hmm. No, it's worth remembering some of the context for people, you know, there's going to be people soon who don't remember football before VAR, which is crazy in itself. But, you know, the reasons it was brought in were things like this. Where you get the issues with it is when things like this still get applied, you know, to video decisions that they can see with their eyes. But you know, the reason for it was that subjectivity. I can sort of understand what Webb meant by that, in that, like, you know, that was kind of like the common thinking among referees, probably the sort of thing they'd have discussed on an away day.
Well, it's what you're going to get criticised for, at least, is what he's thinking in that moment.
And he's probably, you know, having a degree of a go at the media around all of that as well. But, you know, ultimately, you just should referee what you see in front of you and not the context. I mean, this was, I think it was in a crowded field, the drunkest Anfield Wrap recording I've been part of. I think it was us 3 up the tower. And yeah, we hadn't taken it well at the time.
It probably still exists somewhere.
We were digging through Howard Webb's CV. We were questioning various aspects of his character. But yeah, it just I really wanted the FA Cup this season. You know, because I already had. Look, I publicly and 99% privately thought this team was going to win the league. But you always wanted that feeling. This is the second best thing we could win. They deserve to come away with something. They deserve to have that moment of carrying something. And you always knew that Man City or Chelsea or Arsenal could come late and deny you the league. So, you know, at this point you were like, well, we are the best team in Europe. We're the best team in the world. I genuinely think it for this sort of 2 or 3 months period. And you just went, well, if we can just get through this bit, as you said, Neil, it had opened up. We get through this bit. This trophy looks like ours. And we've not got loads of other stuff going on. We've not got a European thing to think about. You know, why would we not just want to win this one? You know, we'd spent year after year really where it was just making sure we got either back into or stayed in the top 4. And I was always, you know, I'm always an advocate of that. You obviously need to keep doing that and stay at that, get back into that top table. But this was a real opportunity to be a big statement and be something that these players deserved. You were aware of Gerrard's ticking clock as well, I think. You're aware of Suarez's in your own way. You know, you knew there wasn't a footballer who was going to be with you for forever, and you just thought they deserved something, you know. And and this would have been the chance, and they were denied that chance. So at least a replay, at least a chance to bring them to Anfield and do it all again.
Do you remember much of it, Marion?
Yeah, I think I was there actually. I think for a long time the Emirates struck me as just a very, very hard place to go and play football, and I can't remember what the result was earlier in the year.
2-0 we lost.
Yeah. And there was one game around this period, maybe next year or the year before, where I think Henderson equalises, but we maybe end up losing. But it seemed to be a kind of place where the pitch seemed massive and the football seemed really fast, and it seemed to be unlike anywhere else. And this was a game that I remember not thinking like that. I remember thinking that we were sort of dominant in this game. The thing that Webb said strikes me as the kind of thing referees used to say before fan media was really organised, particularly on social media as well. It's the sort of thing that you would say maybe 15 years before, and you only really had David Mellor and Jimmy Hill to pick up on it. And because those guys were supposed to be kind of neutral.
And very football established.
Yeah.
Very like...
So they didn't pick up on it at all. Whereas when you say something like, well, I've already given one and I didn't want to give another one in case I end up looking stupid the next day, and you suddenly got lots of people, the Anfield Wrap being one of them, but also just lots of people that aren't just siloed in their own houses anymore. They're all connected and they can all get together and say, well, that doesn't make any sense. And it can be spoken about on shows and thousands of people can listen to that and go, yeah, that's right, that's crazy. What's he just said? That's like saying that you wouldn't give a penalty in the first 5 minutes, or you wouldn't give a straight red in the first 5 minutes, even if it was a straight red. And I think it was the start of when referees, which is almost to the place where we are now, where some of their responsibility has been taken away from them during the game and been handed over to people in Stockley Park. But that comment really strikes me as the sort of comment that didn't know that people like you had tens of thousands of people following you.
I think for some degree of balance, I think around, if I was not a Liverpool fan, I'd say the biggest argument this season for VAR was Martin Skirtle's behaviour in the box when we were defending a corner. And I think there's also, there was a lot of that going on. And what the unwritten thing that none of us really want to engage with, and Howard Webb probably doesn't, and even now we don't, is if you do give penalties for everything that's a penalty, you've got a lot of penalties in games. And it's a bit like the stoppage time thing when you go, well, if you are giving this much stoppage time, this is how it looks. Are we going to have a conversation about that? Are we going to say that's how it should look? Are we going to, do we need like a royal commission to go, should we have 8 penalties again? Do we want to have that?
I mean, I can understand Howard Webb thinking that.
Yeah.
What's shocking hearing it now is that he vocalised it.
Yeah.
That's the bit that seems that you would not be able to get away with that now. There would be, PGMOL would be involved, and there'd be emergency podcasts all over the shop. So I just don't think you would get away with saying that now, that you basically didn't trust yourself, and you'd felt like you'd already been lenient, or you'd already given them one decision, so you decided not based on the merits of the decision, but based on the fact that you've already given one, and you didn't want to look silly the next day.
And who the footballer is.
Yeah, and I say I understand someone thinking that's human nature.
Stephen Gerrard Stephen Gerrard wins both those penalties. Stephen Gerrard makes sure he wins both those penalties, to be fair. But
Stephen Gerrard goes over and reminds me Stephen Gerrard if need be.
And you see it. You see it with Salah now. There's time after time when you see him fouled, and I'm sure other clubs will have equivalent players like this. I mean, Peter Crouch is one of the greatest examples. You're like, he's getting fouled there. He's really tall, but he's still getting fouled. Like, please give him a free kick.
And the referee's like, oh yeah, but it must be hard playing against him.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you've got to give him a break.
Yeah. It's like when you play a team from the conference or something, and and it's the National League, and it's and there is a sense of context, and and on that occasion, then you've got the commentators rooting for it, and never going, it's all right, really, just whatever he wants to do. The large Plymouth player holds your player down, that's fine.
What's he meant to do? Yeah. We do miss some good chances as well. I think Sturridge hits the post from pretty much an open goal. And so, the referee and stuff is frustrating, but we have chances when we're on top as well.
So we're actually quite early on in the run. And one of the things about the run is why runs don't happen that often where teams put 10 plus wins together is because you have a day like today. You have a day like this game that you're describing where referees having a bit of a mad one. You're much the better side because you're a team that is capable of winning 10, 11, 12 games on the bounce. You are much the better side, but the ball doesn't bounce your way. The finishing's slightly off. And that's the reason why the runs don't happen. Genuinely, you know, that it's part of football, is that you can be quite consistently the better team across an extended period, but there are days when it just goes against you. What's interesting in this one, and in the hindsight of the whole conversation, because they don't go on and win the league, you view it with just a tinge more regret than you might have done, off the basis of the fact that you'd obviously would just have liked them to have won the FA Cup.
Yeah.
And in the end, the run that they do go on in the league, because it doesn't bear the fruit of them getting to lift the league in the end, then you're a bit like, well, if they'd just won this one. But
in April, we were like, oh, glad we went off the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Because we're playing once a week.
Or if you said to us in April, you were going to play the last 9, you were going to win 8 of them, which 8 do you want to win? Yeah. Or which one do you want to get beaten?
Yeah.
We'd have all gone Arsenal in the cup game.
And it was such a small squad, and that is the thing that, you know, a couple of months later we weren't lamenting it too much, and but now with hindsight, what happens next we are. I think it's also worth pointing out, Steve, that because it's going to change in a couple of games, that we're still doing 4-5-1 here, and the manager is rotating Sturridge and Suarez depending on sort of what he thinks is best, and he goes Sturridge in the league game through the middle. I think he switches them for this one, and I don't know whether that's because he's got his eye on, you know, what how he thinks they're going to set up, and how he or he just thinks, well, they'll expect me to do the same, so we'll do something different. But they would take it in turns, one playing almost left wing and one playing centre forward, and they both just got on with it, and that says a lot about them.
But it's a reminder as well, you know, you signed Sturridge at the time, and, you know, and at City and Chelsea, it had been like, well, he's possibly wide, he's possibly a centre forward. You had it with Torres, you know, you signed someone who go, and we you know, you say now, oh, when he can play here as well. And actually, you know, in your mind now, Daniel Sturridge is centre forward, but, you know, why would you do anything else? But you know, he Suarez as well, you know, is sort of he's an out-and-out number 9 for Ajax, I suppose, a goal poacher, and, you know, then he shows all of these other things he can do, and you know, the flexibility, I suppose, is forgotten a little bit of the fact that they could move around, take up different positions. You know, the best sort of mobile 9s can pick up all those positions and hurt teams from other places. You know, Henry being, I suppose, the ultimate example of someone who would start wide and then hurt you central. And, you know, Liverpool were doing that, and also, you know, he's still finding out about them. You know, he's only, I mean, I don't know how many actual games Daniel Sturridge is into his Liverpool career at this point. It's not loads, you know, it's not anywhere near as many as Harvey Elliott has played for Liverpool now.
Yeah.
Probably a fifth as many.
Yeah.
So, you know, and we're still looking at players. There's an example where you go, I'm not quite sure where he plays, not quite sure. Whereas, you know, you have to make, if you're Brendan Rodgers in these 2 seasons, you're making your decisions quickly, and you're having to, about players from Suso to Sturridge to Flanagan. You know, you've had to come in and go, who of these are useful to me, who aren't? And that goes back to the small squad thing, and then including players who are bought by or for him in the summer. You know, is Yago Aspas going to be much help to us at Arsenal away? Probably not. Now, you may say that a manager's job would be to make that the case, but his job is also to produce the results, and he's undoubtedly been doing that in this period.
Okay, let's move on to a league game then, and it's Liverpool 4, Swansea 3. An absolute mad game. I think we lead 4 times. I think we go 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, 4-3, and they just keep pegging us back. It's a big one for the John Joe Shelvey scored and put his hands up, which we saw far too often over a decade of that. I feel like we had in our lives. Yeah. Shelvey scoring at the top end and then putting his hands up and everyone clapping, and me just going bananas. A lot of that, but it was a mad game. We got there in the end. I remember the book we did, right in the line, that Jordan Henderson is more of a try than a goal. Yeah. He just bundles it in that brilliant way at the top end, and they get there in the end, Martin. But what a mad game. Yeah. Wilfred Boney as well, couldn't live with him.
I think both the games against Swansea this year could.
Shelvey scores in the other one.
Yeah, the first one was
and then sets us up.
So the first one was a Monday night.
Yeah, early. Yeah.
Which I got back about 7 o'clock in the morning because of just getting back from Swansea, and I think the coach tried to go under a bridge that it was too tall for.
Oh no.
But anyway, but this game, I think in all of the times that Shelvey has played against us, he becomes the abiding memory of the game, you know. And there's something, there is a game involving a ball and using your feet, which I think he would be really, really good at. I'm not convinced it's football. Actually, I am convinced it's not football because we're now in 2025 and the rest of his career has kind of shown us that. But he was capable of some very good things, and he was capable of some not very good things. And it was so important for us to get this win because, I mean, it certainly wasn't a vintage performance. And after what we'd done to Arsenal, and then we lost in the cup, but it didn't really feel like a setback. We had the momentum of Fulham. It's always good to win like a 7-goal thriller, even if it's against Swansea, at home. But it was just that sense of, well, we got through that. Let's get to next week. I don't really remember who scored. Who scored the goals?
So I've just checked it. We actually go 2-0 up, and then they get it back to 2-2, and then it's 3-2, 3-4, 4-3. Sturridge gets 2, and Henderson gets 2, and Scale scores 1 for them, and obviously Shelby, and the aforementioned Wilfred Boney. So yeah, it's a good day for Jordan, who gets the winner and plays really well from memory, and he's becoming more and more central in this team.
Sterling is essentially a centre mid in this game, and he plays the through ball for the first goal, I think, probably Sturridge, and it's unreal. And I think this is where, you sort of see that quality come through as well in him. And I mean, Liverpool are, it's wild. And you say you couldn't have been Boney. What I quite like about a game like that is that you can not live with someone. It doesn't mean you have to lose. You know, there are times that, say, Benteke would come with Villa, and you go, we can't live with this fellow. We're going to lose the game, aren't we? So you can have a hat trick if you want. If we score 4, like we can. Sometimes you cannot deal with someone, but you deal with all the others and impose your own self on the game. And I think that feels like almost the sort of thing the manager may well have said. At times if someone's just running hot and they're just they're physical and they're able to outmuscle you at times, you might lose your battles, and now and again we'll have your battles, and then also just have that will and Henderson epitomised that throughout this season, that he was always going to be someone who would help us get over the line, and all these experiences that pay off years later in his Liverpool career. He's absolutely pivotal in so many ways to this season, in a way that it's almost a little bit written out, because you talk about Suarez, you talk about Sturridge and Sterling and other players, and Henderson and Coutinho at times, the quality they brought, alongside Gerrard in that midfield was ridiculous. Yeah,
the Henderson's having a great season. Yeah, it's obscured by the fact that other people are. He's terrific, Henderson, in the away game against Tottenham that we've talked about, the 5-0. It's just that you take away from that game is, well, not just the Liverpool fact that Liverpool scored 5, but it's also, oh my God, Raheem Sterling. Yeah. There's other games through the run, and through the whole season, but where Henderson has been the 3rd best player on the pitch a lot of the time, or the 2nd most eye-catching player on the pitch, but the best player on the pitch has been Luis Suarez. The most eye-catching player on the pitch has been Daniel Sturridge, and these lads are absolutely, the one who's grabbed your attention and pulls you through emotionally is Steven Gerrard. But Henderson's pulling you through emotionally, playing really, really well, and is eye-catching. It's just that all these things can just obscure because, there's something so compelling about those other players when they're on it, as it's just been described. But this is a game where Henderson also gets 2 goals, so he gets his brace through this one. And Steve's right to also mention Coutinho in this context. It's a really funny thing this season, in that it is perfectly reasonable to say it's the closest Coutinho gets to winning a major trophy with Liverpool. It is this campaign. He only scores 4 goals all the way through. We're going to talk about the big one at some point soon, but only gets 4 goals all the way through. But what he is doing is he's acting as provider, and he's out in a really weird way. And this shouldn't really happen in your head either. But Philip Coutinho is pressing, so Steven Gerrard doesn't have to. Through this period of the season, it's the same with Henderson as well. You expect that more with Henderson, but Coutinho's doing it. And then in this instance, you get the Henderson brace as well to add to it. But you only get to do what Liverpool did in the season, especially to Steve's point with the fact that they were defensively vulnerable. If your footballers who all play in the final third of the pitch or in the opposition's half is maybe a better description of Henderson and Coutinho in this season, if those players are playing really well, and the two of them really, really are, and in this one, Henderson's massive. I did enjoy this one. This is my first, possibly my most anxious one. The idea of it being all a bit rambunctious and a load of fun you know, there's other games that felt to me more like it had that energy. This felt to me one like we managed to not shoot ourselves in the foot. To your more of a try than a goal thing. It's the distance out from the end. It's not because we're pulling them apart either. It was a good side. It was a good Swansea team. And to me, it's the way in the run, second half of the season, including like Stoke away, we've all talked about on a previous episode, and we all loved it. And it's mad, but you always feel like Liverpool are going to get it done. There's other games coming where you always feel like Liverpool will get it done in the end. This was the one to me where I remember being in the ground thinking, you know, I might keel over here because I feel like we're really capable of something. But my God, do we look like we're doing the old Liverpool stuff of shooting ourselves in the foot at the key moments? And this one definitely had that energy.
It's playing a team that in it's on Rodgers' first game we lose to them. We'd drawn away the same season. I'm not sure what happened in the other game, the Anfield game the season before. But at best, we've won 1 in 3 against this team, and
we win it because it's the morning after break. I think we win 4-0.
So
we've won 1 in 3. Then you know under Rodgers against his former club. There's a sense that you know they know some of the stuff that he'll do. They know some of the tricks. They're also just a good team.
Yeah,
a really good team. You know, it's easily forgotten that period where partly thanks to Rodgers, partly thanks to just really good recruitment. And so they're always worth remembering, you know, when you talk about sides, they've got it cracked with recruitment, and there'll be a Guardian feature about their incredible, what they've done. And then
Sporting Director's just about to go to
Sporting Directors, yeah, incredible. and then actually football just comes and bites you in the end.
Yeah.
You know, and that's always just worth bearing in mind and taking with a pinch of salt and remembering.
Who's your favourite one of them? Alan Carr's dad. That was good.
Oh yeah, Alan Carr's dad.
Yeah.
Ipswich back in the late 90s when they signed like Finidi George and stuff.
Everton have
done well.
Bagged a couple, haven't they?
Yeah, they've ended up with those lads when they're on the.
Oh, you mean the fellas?
Fellas,
yeah.
Steve Walsh, the Leicester one.
Marcel Brands, wasn't it? Kamoli, I'll go for
Kamoli's my favourite.
Yeah,
he's my favourite blagger. Yeah. Some guy.
I think around this time, we obviously had the kind of tried and tested talent of Suarez and maybe Sturridge, although he certainly does emerge this season. But all the other players that were emerging that you wouldn't have seen 3-4 months ago, like Sterling and Coutinho, Henderson starts to up his game. They're all forward attacking players, and I think without wishing to look too far forward into what happens at the end of the season, you couldn't really say our defence was our Achilles heel.
Well, the best thing about Morrisgale was, apart from the fouls he was getting away with, was he was scoring big goals as set pieces.
Yeah.
Which is great, but it should be the best part of your game.
No, exactly. Yeah.
And he probably was the best, you know, pound for pound in terms of where he was at in his career. You know, I think Glenn Johnson's a magnificent human being in every way, but probably was just at a weird point in his career. Aga's obviously on his way out. You know, Toure we brought a great injection of experience and know-how and quality for a while, but you know, it was and then Ali Sissoko, John Flanagan were doing the absolute best they could, and you know, ultimately Skirtle probably is the leader among all of that, which is a bit mad, really, because I think he's a better Liverpool player than some people would give him credit for, and certainly a more important one. You know, across a couple of eras.
He shouldn't be your best defender.
But yeah, he probably shouldn't be. And you know, there's loads of us who were massive Rafa Benitez fans, and you know, he signs 3 of the names I've just said there. You know, so it's essentially that kind of back four, but it's not like he comes in like Wenger did and inherits. You know, a back four you don't need to mess with.
Yeah.
But Liverpool are directing their resources towards where they probably should, which is how do we get the ball in the net.
Yeah. And of course we had the keeper as well.
Yeah.
So
we did have a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
We'd only just signed him. He was in his first year.
And he did have that great opening game. But
that was a pretty good season.
But certainly the kind of players that emerged in this period, the players that you think of when you think about this season, they are kind of the front six.
Yeah.
Okay. Next game's an interesting one. It's Southampton away. We win 3-0. It's interesting because it's the first time we see the diamond. And also my memory of this is I only watched the first half. I was playing with the brass band then, and we had a concert that night. So me and Graham McDonough, who I saw the other day actually, although we'll now be thinking, no, you didn't, because this is coming out in months. But Graham, I assure you it did. But we watched the first half together in this pub in the Wirral, and then we were playing I can't even remember when it was, New Brighton floor pavilion, let's say. And I thought we got battered first half, and they were playing this 4-4-2 diamond, and they couldn't get to grips with it at all. And then we went to this concert because we had to go, thinking we're gonna get beat here. And then they just kept scoring. And every time we looked at up each other, like I think he was checking the score, and he was like 1, 2, 3. And I was like, is this the same game? Like I couldn't believe it. So how did it happen? Did they just get to grips with it, or were we just one of those teams who could just score goals?
They got to grips with it. They played so well second half. I don't know quite what goes. It's one of the most interesting half times of the season. They come out second half, they're much better. The first to everything, second half, and then from there they're able just to push forward and impress. Suarez is great. I think he plays ever so well, and it's the game where infamously he tries to tackle someone with his head. He just literally, to say he puts his head in where other men wouldn't, he is on the floor, and he goes in to win it. Like, I've just got to win this ball and knock it forward at this point, and ends up just getting sort of a knee or a shin to the head, and he's not bothered at all. I don't even ask for the free kick. Almost like, I've got to knock this forward here for us. The really good second half. I watched it with Steve. I think we watched it in the Hope and Anchor, if I remember rightly, for this one, and they were excellent. You know, in the second half, it is a funny first half, but they survive it, is what I would say. And it's in loads of ways, it's sort of one of my favourite games of the whole campaign because they survived the first half.
And it's a good Southampton team, so to Martin's point on a good Swansea team, you need to remember sort of who you're playing here. I mean, they were the kings of what we were talking about before, the great scouting, and then we just kept taking players off them. I think they've still got Dejan Lovren at this point.
And they've got Lallana as well, and they would do. I think Pochettino could be manager.
Yeah, he will be.
And the rattling around the pitch, Southampton, and we just work it out second half. But what we don't do is we don't fall to bits first half.
I think they've probably got Gaston Ramirez at this point, who was a player we'd been linked with. You know, we were essentially. I mean, we were in the same. Fishing in the same pond as them.
Yeah, they were buying players who we were like, oh, we're not quite sure.
Yeah.
And then they would take
the gamble on them more. Yeah.
The ones that we wanted the next year, wherever they were.
Yeah. And this season plays a big part in going, no, actually, you buy their players rather than, you know. And I think Liverpool re-establishing that was the story of the season. It's funny how, like, locations, suddenly, I was grasping a little bit from memory of this game, and then the Hope and Anchor. It was in one of the booths with a little screen, and Rob Gutman was there.
Yes.
And I can't imagine any of that now. any of that happening.
He's at someone else's pub.
I've got a feeling he was really unhappy.
We don't even get to go to someone else's pub anymore. We're in one of his now.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
But yeah, it's... And again, when we're talking through these, you know, it reminds you how quickly things change in the league. You know, we were talking about two sides there who won't be playing in the Premier League next season, who were both really hard to play against them. You know, it shouldn't underestimate what it took to beat those teams, and to go to Southampton. That was traditionally, I think, a tougher way, even up to recent seasons, and obviously this season has changed it. Although we did actually make it quite hard in our title winning season.
I don't have a huge memory of the game. I don't remember the anxiety that you three felt. I mean, I think that sometimes happens when you're there because you're feeling that.
I think it would have been a good one to be at for that reason.
Yeah, because I think you're feeling that you've done everything you can.
Yeah.
You know, and whereas sometimes when you watch games at home or in the pub, part of your frustration is the fact that you're not there, supporting the team that's on the pitch in front of you. So I don't remember the anxiety. I remember a very, very bouncy away end in the second half, and just a continued sense of momentum, and I guess the kind of rarity of this season, which is that we didn't concede a goal. We didn't. There's so many games where they're pretty high scoring games, and if you're saying we didn't have a good half, I don't remember. But
I think it was one of those where you got in at half time and gone. If you were in the ground more than if you watch it on television, you've gone in at half time and have gone, we've done all right there. Yeah. We've done all right there because it's still 0-0. And I think that's a bit more of my override memory of it. But because I remember thinking this is the sort of game, as I say, for different Liverpool teams, where it's 1-0 or 2-0 down at half time. We've done all right there. We've still got that, to your point about momentum, we've still got that feeling that we're on a mission here. We're moving forward. We've fought through the mission, and I think that's the first half story of this one. I think you've got the literal worst of all worlds. You're also watching it thinking there's something I could really do before we go and play this concert, which is this game should put to bed. And so you're watching it through the eyes of, lads, you've got 45 minutes to win this for me, if you don't mind. If it could be 3-0 up at half time, that'd be great.
Who scored the goals, John?
Suarez, Sterling, and then Gerrard gets a late pen.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Really late, 90 plus 5.
Yeah. Oh
Late
yeah,
as it
yeah,
gets.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, people had started to go, and then they all ran back up, and then it became a thing.
Yeah. Okay, then we have an international break, and then we go to Old Trafford and win 3-0.
We're in the States.
We are. Yeah, we are. We watch it very early in, I like it, was it Carrigan Spa? I mean, it's not Carrigan Spa as it is now. Was it
It was. I remember
iteration of Carrigan Spa?
me and Mike Nevin on the way to the game were doing your heading. I remember that.
Yeah.
You didn't have to agree so readily, but
No, I remember it very vividly.
I mean, you could have said that doesn't sound like you, but
No, you were
we were saying
crying it in.
we were saying
crying.
we have a different vintage, and we were saying that it's a long way to go. It's a game at Old Trafford, and yada yada yada, and all of that sort of stuff. So we were still kind of we're handily placed, but a little bit nervous. I was also nervous because you two were about to walk into a pub, and without anyone in that pub knowing.
Oh, commentates the game?
Without anyone in
Shit, I
that
forgot
pub
about
knowing or having agreed to it. and it wasn't. I'm sure it wasn't a Liverpool pub.
No, it was.
It was.
I don't think it was.
I think this might be a separate year, but no, I think if it's...
It was in the up. You know where we did the shows?
Yeah.
It was in the upstairs bit of that. And I think a lot of people had come.
Just to watch the match in general, and we did the thing downstairs.
Yes, we
later.
did the shows
Okay,
downstairs.
yeah. You could be right.
But
yeah.
then we watched the game upstairs. Loads of people had come in. I'm watching all these people with like United tops on. And I'm thinking, they're not going to do this, surely. And then you two pick up a microphone, which I've never seen in a pub since.
I think we had headsets.
Yeah, and you just commentated.
My man, we had headsets.
Like Bobby Brown.
And you just commentated like loudly. They turned the TV down and turned you two up.
Well, quite right.
And everyone, and no one seemed to mind.
If there was an Irishman who wasn't happy.
I remember someone walked in and wasn't happy.
Yeah, I remember upsetting an Irishman, which in many ways I still am. But yeah, he called me a conscious bastard, which I didn't really understand as an insult.
Is that like an original version of woke?
I think it was like, I think maybe he was saying it like the opposite of subconscious. But he called me a...
So you're aware that
Yeah.
you're...
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Yeah.
With your
But,
bastard.
but I could completely understand it, but I knew from the venom he said it was definitely an insult.
I remember we were eating dinners for breakfast.
Yeah.
And then having drinks for dessert. And then when we won, we looked at our watches. It was what, 9:30, 10 o'clock?
And we had a live show that night.
And then Gerlin said, where do we go? Who do we see? And that was his, because we just won 3-0. And he'd had 5 pints, and it was New York, and it was 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah, we went to a Mexican. Gerling found it. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
It was one of those where we were looking for food. And other people suggested somewhere, and then Gerling went, I'll take control of this in a high-handed way that annoyed everyone.
Yeah.
But then he took us to an amazing Mexican, and we were like, oh, fair play, he's nailed that. So I remember that.
Can't argue with it.
Yeah.
But we'd done a couple of shows, hadn't we?
We've done a couple of things, yeah.
And then we travelled in that morning, did this. And I remember on the night of the show, I remember John you saying, I don't know what we were worried about. We've got a really good manager and they haven't. Because they had Moyes.
Moisey, yeah.
And we had started to believe in Rodgers. I was specifically remembering you at the show saying, it should never have been in doubt because, you know, football's straightforward and we've got a great manager and they haven't. And I remember thinking, no one said that about United for the last maybe 18, 19 years. No one has said that we had a better manager than them. And I remember thinking, yeah, this is good. It's exciting.
It's one. I mean, United away. It's sort of like multiplies the barometer effect you talked about. Arsenal being one of those places where, and I think you can tell you're having a good season if you go to Arsenal and it's not incredibly hard. And when after the trophy lift, Slot was asked by Kelly Cates this week, like, when did you know this was on? And he said United away, which was really early.
Yeah, fair
to be saying that. And it was literally because we went there and we won. And it's nothing to do with where Man United are at this point. You know, we've seen it time and time again in season after season. there's those games that you multiply the fact that the pitch feels massive. It all feels alien. Like you have to really work hard to earn the right to play, and it's Man United.
And on the occasions that we'd won there, it was. I mean, apart from
it was Danny Murphy.
Yeah, it was always Danny Murphy.
Scores a free kick, and then you get behind the ball and you hope.
There was the Torres. There was the 4-0, I think, where like
4-1. Yeah. But
where,
I mean,
but even scores.
Even that game is on such a knife edge. That game turns on.
It's 2-1 for ages, and then already.
Well, yeah, but it also turns on literally the timings of it. And looking back at it, you think there's so many times that he could have blown for a foul on Vidic as Torres shrugged him off. Not a foul by any means, but it could have happened. It really is on an absolute knife edge, that game. Whereas this one is just comprehensive, really. I think.
We completely
Liverpool just show them. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's it's full of sort of iconic little moments. There's Gerrard and Fellaini.
Yeah.
Which I think really sort of stayed with a lot of people because it was the real sort of sense of we're not, we're going to go give absolutely everything to get this through to the other side, and that's how we're going to do it. There's the fact that we do get 3 penalties, which we
missed one.
Yeah, which I actually think that Gerrard misses one, which I think is contextualised in part by the Howard Webb thing.
Well, Suarez wins at least 2 of them, doesn't he? And is one of them his little flick up the handball? Yeah, which he then makes a bit of a party piece.
Yeah, it's the Johnny Evans. He's almost, this is Suarez channeling Shane Warne. He basically puts it where Johnny Evans doesn't want it, and Evans just sort of punches it, and they can't believe he's done it, but it really is as though he's just sort of found him off stump, and Johnny Evans has waved a bat at it, and everything's gone the way in which it's gone.
It's a very iconic Suarez celebration as well when he finally scores.
Yeah.
And he sort of ends up between someone's legs, and he's just sort of right there. It's really nice.
And all of it really is just they are that much better than them. I think this is the it could have been 4 if the Gerrard penalty, the third Gerrard penalty had been in, if he'd have scored it. But they're just that much better than them, and they're better than them from the first whistle. And it was coming from a distance out. This must be around the time, for instance, of the thing that still gets repeated now all the time of David Moyes saying Manchester United need to improve in 3 areas, passing, defending, and creating, or something like that. But it's around that time. It's around this very specific moment, and that's why you were really confident before it. The thing that Martin says that you said afterwards on stage, you were saying before it in a real, I need these men just to calm down way, because you're.
I think the final straw was when they had Everton catching us. They were looking down, not up, and they were like, Everton aren't far behind us, and I was like, I'm gonna have to step in here.
It's strange because I am generally very much a glass half full, person, but I think I can get quite catastrophic sometimes when you look ahead to football.
I think it's an international big thing, I think we forget sometimes.
Oh no, I'm always
how good our team is.
I think even if
since we played.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of think the opposite, like about us though. So if we're 3-0 up and there's 10 minutes to go, I can imagine. Again, I don't wish to move forward to the end of the season, but I can imagine us drawing that game to be all. But likewise, if we're 3-0 down, I basically can just imagine everything.
Yeah, if we're 3-0 down, you think we can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think on the way there, I just thought, I was just doing maths out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
it's never a good idea.
But they were that good, and it's another one where, Suarez obviously is a key part of it. Gerrard scores 2 penalties, misses the other one. Christ, Sterling's good. Sterling plays the apex of that midfield, and they just do not know what to do with him.
Yeah.
And if there's a little bit of a thing here where he's got a week to work with them in between the games, he's still almost working out what Sterling is as a footballer. There's a mad thing I feel about Sterling. I have a lot of feelings about Raheem Sterling. I'd quite like just to have got him on board this season, and even now you could talk me into it, even if
he was awful for Arsenal.
Yeah. Because I remember in this period feeling like Raheem Sterling was the cleverest footballer I'd ever seen, certainly for his age. So you give him a tactical job to do, and he would just absolutely execute it. And there's a sentence I'm about to say, which if Raheem could hear it, I need him to know that it's entirely out of the fact that I think he's incredible and think he was incredible. That even allowing for the literal medals he can put on the table, there's a bit of me that almost certainly wrongly feels as though he didn't make the most of his career. So the seasons where he scored 28 goals for Manchester City in league-winning teams, and there's a bit of me that thinks, yeah, but lads, you should have played central. Because I've never
been top 5 players.
What I thought was the bar had been, the bar was being set by Messi, Ronaldo, where you go, it's 50 goals in La Liga, and that was what I thought he should have been, was centre forward for Barcelona. As it turned out, it was the other one. It was the other fella who I'm sure everyone else would have told me was much more likely to be the one who actually did do that. But yeah, Sterling had that in him, I think, and Man City were always going to beat that out of you. Aguero was there. It was never going to be quite. He was never going to be quite what he could have been as a footballer. You say the medals, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, do the medal? I think Salah's such a great example of someone who can synthesize those two things. Like, it doesn't mean that he doesn't want to win stuff, and it doesn't mean that. I mean, that winning the individual things, means it all. But the winning, adding up all those numbers at the end, provided you win some stuff along the way, it feels like the perfect balance to me.
Am I right in thinking that they were champions this year, United? Because So there's that to factor in as well. Even though the Ferguson and everything that he represented had gone, but certainly if you'd have said during the show that night that not only do we have a better manager now, but we will continue to have better managers for the next.
We go 14 points clear to them. I've just checked, which is insane. Yeah.
And every year where they come second, they never get near. I don't know if they've only won it twice, but they never get near, threatening the league again. So it's tempting to look back at it now and say that was the moment you realised that their power had gone. Maybe that's overdoing it, but yeah, they've never. And how many managers have they had since then?
So many, yeah. So we go 14 points clear with them.
But that United team, sorry, it's De Gea, Raphael, Evra, Phil Jones, Nemanja Vidic, Mata, Rooney, Januzaj, who is the future of football in some people's eyes, Carrick, Fellaini, Van Persie. It's like, you're right to, everything that's Ferguson stuff forward had kind of gone in a way, but not the players.
Yeah.
Rio Ferdinand comes off the bench, Ashley Young's on the bench. It's the
players like sense off, don't he?
Yeah, I mean, Shinji Kagawa is on the bench, who they'd signed, who was going to, who was
had high hopes.
Terrifying. Yeah, scored a hat-trick, I think, early on. They had their best ever player in Wayne Rooney. That's enough for a start. They were fantastic.
Yeah, no, it is all fair. It is all fair. So there's understandable reasons to fear, but there's understandable reasons to feel superior, and they certainly looked at that day. The 4 points off top, by the way. You know who was top?
Chelsea.
Yeah. Neil's constant point that the Chelsea get away with murder.
That was in Mourinho
this year. They had to get away with absolute murder this year. 4 points off Chelsea, who were top of the table at this point, a level on points on Arsenal. So there we are. Okay, let's do one more in this part, and then we will have a little bit of a break. I'm just trying to find the game, but I know which one it is. It's the 6-3 at Cardiff. Which I watch in Krakow, which is like I think I flew from New York to Krakow, and because I had to go, because we had real jobs then, and so I had to go and do work there. So I watched it in an Irish pub in Krakow, and I always remember. It's one of those, like, Krakow wasn't like Stag Do Central then. I think it is a little bit more now, but there was obviously like people there on holiday, and you're in an Irish pub, so it's going to be like a lot of like English people there, ironically, and there was people from the south who supported teams from the south, and I remember every time Cardiff kept scoring, they were going mad, and I was just like, just hold your horses, boys. Like we've all had a pint, but these pricks could score 12 goals and we'll win, so don't worry about it. I was so confident that we just get more. This is the most, we'll just score more than you. So everyone just chill out. And these fellas who were just being pricks, I even felt a bit sorry for them, because I was like, we're just going to get more. And we did. It was 3 more. And they got 3.
Did you watch the game before in Krakow? That's a memory tester for you. Can you remember it?
I don't think I'd have got away with that.
Right, okay. So I'll tell you what the game was that kicks off before this one. Chelsea, in terms of gets away with it, beat Arsenal 6-1.
Did they?
They whack Arsenal this morning. Before this, it's at Stamford Bridge, and it's like what happened to Arsenal at Anfield happens to them again before this one. They absolutely whack them. We watched both games, me and Steve in Love and Rockets in South Liverpool, and we watched both of them back to back, and Chelsea annihilate Arsenal. But it's your real point of it goes further down on this is not a very good Arsenal. This is an Arsenal side that's on its knees. Really weirdly, they just managed to claw their way to fourth Arsenal. Not least because Everton make it too easy for them. They're going to go on and lose at Goodison Park and a few weeks later as well. But somehow Arsenal just managed to keep it together with the home form to get there. So this one finishes 6-1, and then we, the Reds, play and win 6-3. And like you say, at no point did you genuinely almost this one and the Swansea one for me. We've sort of gone the journey of them. The Swansea one was one where I was worried and felt like, there could be a sting in the tail for us. For me, this one, I was almost disappointed it wasn't 8-3. Can it be something mad 3? Can it finish 9-4? Something like that, Steve.
It's a big Glenn Johnson game. It's one of those games.
Yeah.
It's one of those games when you go, we've got this, and this fella. And I think you see that with whenever you've been a good team, as a Liverpool side, having that one extra fella who just no one can live with. He stretches the play really well. His quality is unbelievable. There's not many massive Glenn Johnson moments in the season, but I treasured them all, and this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, it's a big one for the front two, and it is very much a front two by this point. It's interesting that he, at this stage of the season, he's actually rotating who plays 10. So Coutinho plays in this one, and Sterling's on the bench. He ends up decided that he just has to play the both of them, and ends up, Coutinho plays very much central midfield by the end, so fair play to him for that. But by this point, he's swapping them in the 10, and he's playing Joe Allen and Henderson, in the midfield too, if you like. But Sterling's really great. But Suarez is Sturridge, just the way they're linking up. Yeah. There's the Sturridge back heel to Suarez just smashing it home. That is just one of my favourite goals of the season.
Were they managed by Solskjaer?
Yes.
Because he just brought them up, hadn't he?
Yeah. Well, after the game,
someone says,
a commentator says, an interviewer says, do you think they will win the league? And he's like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know, wasn't it Marky Mackay was the manager when they came to Anfield?
Yeah, then Solskjaer was the manager.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Malky Mackay was the first person where people chanted his name and then said, I just don't think you understand.
Oh, is that right?
And I still don't understand.
Yeah.
No. So,
especially once his messages were revealed.
What I remember about this game was it was t-shirt weather. So we'd been through the dark months.
Yes.
We'd been away, and then we came back to England, and it was spring.
Yeah.
And I think it was the first game where we started to sing "We're Gonna Win the League," and it was the first time I'd heard that sang at a ground for quite a few years. And I thought, well, look, the best time to sing that song is in spring, and it's definitely spring because everyone's in t-shirts and it's hot, and we've just won 6-3, and this even though after Fulham. We were like, there's a whole thing on social media about it's on and stuff like that. This was the game that to me, the odds drastically shortened. And I thought, okay, I'm not singing this with a coat on. Do you know?
But in the home straight.
Yeah. I was singing it with a t-shirt on, and the world snooker's about to start. And those are the things that I look for. If you can be in a shout for the league when it goes down to one table.
The one table setting.
You're in a good
that Grand National snooker.
Yeah,
corridor.
if you're singing it during the Masters or the UK. It's like everyone's singing it then. When it goes down to one table at the Crucible. Well, that's your men separated from the boys.
Well, I think I remember it was a hot day, and one of the reasons why I remember it being a hot day was it was the first time I think I'd been exposed to a needless Gutman fire in Love and Rockets. Yeah. I remember the fire, and I remember the sweat.
He just got the fire?
He got the fire and he made up for it.
With the fire.
Yes, but the fire was relentlessly on, and I remember watching these two matches back to back, thinking, "Oh my God, I am so hot." The sweat was pouring off me. And it just felt enormous. It felt so significant. I think I remember going out afterwards and just wanting to be out forever. It was a little bit of a colliery with the Arsenal one in a way because, you can, at the minute, we're rightly sort of talking about it in a bit of a grown-up way. But there was just, it's this sort of thing. So like I said before, and this is why the Chelsea Arsenal thing's in my head with them shipping 6. This stuff just didn't happen in football. There's an extended... We win 4-1 at Old Trafford in 2009. And that felt like that stuff doesn't happen. This doesn't happen. These days don't happen.
It didn't happen to us, and it didn't happen by design. You know, you had the sense of under Liverpool's previous to long-serving managers who got us close. Let's say under Julian Benitez, if stuff like that happened, it was almost like, oh God, it's gone out of control. Whereas almost it was by design. It was almost like it happened because that was the thing that suited us to happen.
Yeah.
You know,
The pragmatic
if Cardiff fancy scoring 3, we'll score 6. If Cardiff fancy scoring 1, we might struggle a bit more. And that was the sort of the debate in switch we had to. At times, we almost had to let teams come onto us a little bit, and it was getting used to that. And some people, it took a lot longer to buy in and just really enjoy it. And as you there's some weeks where you enjoyed it more than others. And this was definitely one where it was really enjoyable. It was
I think also on the quiet is one of the most enjoyable scorelines because you've still won by 3 goals.
Scoreline, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you've seen 9 goals.
Yeah.
Now the purists would say you've got to stop conceding 3 goals. Again, looking to the future, but generally speaking, you shouldn't be conceding 3 goals. But when you're in amongst it and you're in the crowd, when you see 9 goals. And I don't remember a period of anxiety in this game. I don't remember a time when we were level, apart from obviously at the start. But you have still hammered a team.
Yeah.
And it was similar to the game against Spurs this season away, where you still felt comfortable. And okay, they've scored some goals, but you always felt you could score more. It's an enjoyable scoreline.
I've got the memory of a Martin Skirtle half volley that he's reaching for that clatters into the back of the net.
All the big score, all the big guys back.
Well, I have to say though, I'm not 100% on which end. Like I've got the mental image of Skirtle hanging
if he's still on the other side. He definitely scores 2 in the right goal.
And it being a great finish, like a really, really good finish.
No, he doesn't get any of this.
So there we are. Then that's the one. And it must be one. But it's that sort of season. I think Steve's point about this is the point where, and your thing about being in Krakow and being really relaxed about it. And obviously, no one thinks it's a great Cardiff side. Don't get me wrong. But this is approaching the time when you are bought in. You're bought into, and I'll say again, it is the pragmatic approach. What brings and keeps Liverpool at the party throughout this season is the feeling that at any given moment we can score at least 3. Any given game, any opponent, we could score 3 plus, all the way through. And that's also sort of true in any given 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So whatever the opponent's up to, unless they manage to find the way to 4 or 5, you genuinely would just think to yourself, we could just turn this around now. All it takes is for Sturridge to do something really, really good and Suarez to do the decent thing, or vice versa, and then both, and we'll have 2 goals back. Thank you very much. That can just happen in the blink of an eye because you can't cope with them. You cannot cope with them. It's around now where Gerrard says the thing. I think if you want to play, or is that Stoke? He says it.
I think it is
Stoke, but it is now 2v2. It is now nailed on, consistent 2v2 against these 2. All the best at it. You're right. It is Stoke, but it is that sort. That's the vibe of this now. Like Steven said that 2-3 months ago, but this is where we are, and this is what he's doing, and we just are in such good shape. I just loved it, loved the day. In loads of ways, it's the game of the season. It's obviously not because the Arsenal one's there, and there's other better performances. There's the Tottenham away game, but the game that for me almost sums so much the season up is this one. It is this. You're going anywhere. It's all right. Nothing can go wrong because we can score 6.
It's some feeling. Listen, we'll leave that there. Hope you've enjoyed it. There is more to come, of course, from this season and from these gentlemen. But for now, thanks for joining us. Up to Reds.